If you've been watching my videos for a while, then you'll of course know that I'm absolutely obsessed with studying basically each and every level in the Super Mario Bros. Franchise, already making several criticizing and showcasing various ones. One of those was the hardest in every game, which I feel like definitely needs to be revised, while also extending it to say the opposite easy ones, which is exactly what's going to be the topic of today's video. Before I get started with this, my name is Copycat, and if you want to support me, then please subscribe to my channel, and hit that bell button to stay notified when I upload new videos. The very first game of the series is Super Mario Bros. That was released for the NES in 1985, where most people would probably agree with me that one of the final levels, World 8-3, is amongst the entry's hardest. Here you'll find some incredibly unforgiving platforming sections mixed with some of the toughest enemies that you can find, including the Hammer Bros that can easily deal you damage. I guess this level's sharp difficulty does make sense as it's near the end of the game, but really isn't terribly hard in comparison to what we'll see later in this video. The only other level I want to mention on this side of things are the underwater ones in World 2-2 and 7-2, only because maneuvering in these stages can be painful. This is compounded by the fact that you have the bloober and Cheep Cheep enemies to deal with, which can be annoying without the aid of a fire flower. On the easy side of things, I guess I can safely put the levels of World 1-1 and 1-2 in this video, as they're really just there to teach you how to platform in the world that is the Mushroom Kingdom. In 1-2 in particular, you can literally just bypass most of the stage by getting on top of the row of blocks, which literally just leads you right to the warp zone. Wow. Super Mario Bros. 2 is the next to be released in the series, where most lists put World 5-1 as the game's absolute hardest because of the pinpoint platforming required. During the underground portion of the stage, you need to traverse between the jumping trouters, which is definitely tricky, as they come up on the screen very quickly, and there's only a void to fall into if you mess up. There aren't really any tough enemies to face off against, meaning people strictly don't like the platforming, even though I didn't find it too hard. One that's in a very similar vein that people find difficult is World 6-2, where instead of using trouters as platforms, you have to ride on the back of the flying albatross. Once again, where if you fall off, there's only a void below. Honestly, it's tough to say if these levels are even difficult, as I have played this game thousands of times, so I'd love to know which ones you had trouble with in the comments below. I guess in all seriousness, the easiest level is World 1-2, only because you can bypass a large portion of it. To do this, you need to choose Peach, because of her floating ability, and use the Pigeon's magic carpet. Next, take the carpet as far right as you possibly can, then jump and glide, where if you did it right, then you'll easily make it up to the higher platform, skipping most of the stage. Honestly, I've done this so much I don't even remember what the inside portion of this level looks like, which is actually quite funny. In the final game of the original trilogy, Super Mario Bros. 3, most people would choose either World 8's airship or tank levels as the hardest due to the pesky enemies and fast-paced platforming. But I myself have probably lost the most lives in World 8-1. It's really the placement of the voids in spots where you not only have to use enemies to get higher, but also dodge them is why it deserves to be mentioned. But honestly, if you picked the vehicle levels, I wouldn't have blamed you. One set of levels that always disappointed me were the World 8 hand traps, only because the concept of being pulled into lava by a demonic hand seems so daunting, but in reality, it isn't. These stages are just way too easy and honestly too short, where they sort of just waste your time during a playthrough rather than being fun. I guess I also have to mention treasure ships on the easy side of things, as they are technically levels, just devoid of any enemies or real platforming, where the only goal is collecting as many coins as you can. These only appear in Worlds 1, 3, 5, and 6, where you need to have a Hammer Bro on the map, finish a stage with a coin total ending in a multiple of 11, and having a score that the tens digit also matches that multiple of 11. This honestly doesn't do much other than give you coins, but it is at least a cool trick that you can show off to your friends. I decided to include the true Japanese sequel to the original, Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, as it really does have many truly difficult stages, to the point where its North American release was scrapped and replaced with Yumi Kojo, Doki Doki Panic, skinning over that title with Mario characters and enemies. I'd have to say that World C3 is the hardest, not only because you have to use the springboards in this windy environment, But you also have to do this while avoiding the myriad of enemies thrown at you, especially the respawning, flying Lakitus. As a kid, I could never properly get this mechanic down, and even in my most recent playthroughs as an adult, it gave me problems, mainly because it can be hard to tell where you're gonna land. Another level that many people say they lost many lives on is World D3, as the mixture of cannons shooting bullet bills and hammer bros creates a very hostile environment. These factors, coupled with the fact that the game barely contains any power-ups, means that you can't really fireball your way out of your problems, relying only on skill and some luck to complete it. There's one stage that instantly sticks out as the easiest in this title in World 9-3, which is a face-off against Bowser's brother. This level doesn't really have any lead up to that fight at all, and if you want, you can literally just skip the battle entirely by using the top platform to get to the end. This sorta just seems lazy or a last minute addition. Either way, it's embarrassingly simple. The first handheld game in the franchise is Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, where in my playthroughs, the only level I die many times in is World 4-1. What really gets me here are the tough sections featuring the P.O.N.P. enemy, as I always felt like they moved quite erratically while also having the ability to jump. Other than this, I can't say that the game is overly hard, but that is okay, and I commend Nintendo for at least making a fun product, working through the limitations of the time. The easiest levels would definitely have to go to the vehicle-based ones in 2-3 and 4-3, where I'd say the submarine one is a bit easier as you can just bypass the boss, where in the airplane you need to fight the tough Tatanga. Once again, this game is actually very good for its time, but just a bit too short to be considered amazing. Super Mario World for the SNES is up next in this video, where there's two specific special world levels that come to mind as agonizingly hard and outrageous, and Tubular. Tubular is the one that I picked in my last hardest levels video, as it has the strange mechanic of having to use the P-Balloon power-up to traverse forward. However, this is done across a void where you need to avoid attacks from enemies while collecting more of the power-ups so you don't depower. Getting the hang of this is very hard, and even to this day isn't something I'm comfortable doing. Outrageous is a level all you guys in the comments said you had trouble with, and I definitely agree as there's tons of enemies that can easily cause you damage. The trees in the foreground can really get in your way of viewing Mario properly, so that can also give you a bit of trouble. Honestly, I can beat this one very easily in comparison to Tubular, so I'd love to know which one you had more trouble with in the comments below. Out of the game's legitimate levels, and not a bonus area, I'd have to say that Yoshi's Island 2 is the easiest, only because it gives you Yoshi, who is very overpowered. Yoshi can pretty much eat anything in this stage, while also tanking a hit for you, meaning that you'd have to do something pretty stupid to lose a life. The hardest part of this level is the charging chuck, and that can be easily dodged, where in the worst case scenario, you might lose your dino pet. In the sequel to the Game Boy Super Mario Land, almost everyone agrees that the final level of the game, Wario's Castle, is the hardest. One of the biggest complaints is that this final stage is a huge leap up in difficulty than anything else seen before it, and includes sections with spike balls, fire-spewing piranha plant statues, platforms with lava underneath and falling spikes above, and strange Wario-faced creatures that bounce off the walls trying to kill you. At the end of it all, you finally face off against the big bad in his three forms. Just his normal self, him in bunny form, and him powered up with a fire flower. This isn't an excruciating fight, but it is more difficult than any other boss in the game. If I had to pick one easy stage from this entry, then I'd have to go with the Space Zone secret level, only because the enemies here are very slow moving, and there's no void that you can fall into and die. Here you really just collect coins and find 1-up mushrooms, and the little platforming you do have to do is made so much more simple due to the world's low gravity. Both the worst and hardest level in Super Mario 64 for the N64 is Rainbow Ride, a course where the majority of it takes place on moving platforms in the middle of the air. What makes things even more difficult is the game's wonky camera, meaning it can be impossible at times to properly see where you're platforming to, which is something that's important as there's many pinpoint jumps you have to pull off. This is one of the reasons why gaining the 100-star coin is the most difficult in this stage, as they're really spread out in risky places where caution is definitely key. I think in general it's just not a fun level to play, which is part of the problem, as I would actively try to avoid this course, meaning I have the least experience with it. Another level pretty much everyone fails at many times is Wing Mario over the rainbow, as you strategically have to use the wing cap power-up to collect the red coins. If you do this in the wrong order, then you'll pretty much have to restart and try again, and controlling Mario in this flying state is not easy, so have fun getting frustrated. One level that's very easy is the Secret Aquarium, as once again you have to collect 8 red coins, but this time in an underwater setting. Honestly, it is pretty hard to run out of air, especially as it refills every time you collect one of the coins, and there isn't many ways to die or take damage either. Honestly, the hardest part about this level is finding it, as it's very well hidden near the Jolly Roger Bay painting. Anyone who's played Super Mario Sunshine would immediately put the Pachinko machine or Lily Pad ride as their hardest level of the game. But I'm going to avoid the obvious tropes as I've talked about them at length in past videos, so instead my pick is the Pianta Village course. As a collection, the 10 shine sprites that you can get in this area are incredibly tough, where I had problems taming the Chain Chomps, scaling through the village's underside, helping out the Giant Chomp, and collecting all of the red coins in the Chuckster area. I love how much this level evolves depending on the episode you're playing, and I think its difficulty is what makes it so memorable. On the easy side of things, if you were to look at every level in the game, then I'd have to say that the Delfino airstrip area is extremely simple. The first time you visit this place is right at the beginning of the game, where you first get the Flood and learn how to use it against your enemies. Later, once you unlock Corona Mountain, you then gain the ability to pay 10 coins so that you can return to the airstrip, where you can collect 8 red coins and find a secret blue one. Yeah, that's it. The area is at least a nice little bonus, but is a bit bare bones. Nintendo would return the franchise to its 2D roots with the release of New Super Mario Bros. For the DS, where many agree, including myself, that the second tower of World 8 is one of the hardest stages. This is all because of the snake block sections where you need to skillfully move on top of it without falling into the hazards. This is tough as the snake not only moves very quickly, but sometimes in awkward ways, so understanding its pattern is really key to completing this. Another level that needs to be mentioned as difficult is World 8-7, due to some tough jumps, tons of Koopas, and plenty of enemies that want to throw things at you. Without power-ups, this one isn't fun, as dodging some of the attacks takes considerable patience to avoid. One type of level that's easy only because you don't really do much in them are the secret cannon ones, acting as a warp between the world you're in and the one you're going to. Making this a playable stage never really made any sense to me, as you just run straight to the cannon, not really achieving anything. Seriously, just a cutscene would have done fine. When talking about Super Mario Galaxy's hardest levels in the past, I've mentioned the tough 100 purple coin Bone Pen and Luigi Galaxy challenges, along with the Lava Spire 1 HP Daredevil run. But this time I want to look at something completely different in the Bubble Blast Galaxy. Here you have to put Mario inside of a bubble and blow him around an electrified maze, trying to collect all of the star pieces. This is not an easy thing to control, and if you mess up at all you'll burst your bubble, and you'll get no mercy just losing a life. The fact that it's so unforgiving and not giving you multiple chances is why I feel like I need to showcase it in this video. But if you think I'm wrong, or if you think there's something else I should have shown, then please let me know in the comments. What's the worst level in this game, in my opinion, is also the easiest, as the Grand Finale Galaxy is literally just you collecting 100 purple coins in the castle grounds with no obstacles or enemies to face off against. Why Nintendo put this as the final unlockable secret level is beyond me, but at least they learned their lesson, and in later titles this would never happen again. Like, they're hard, you'll see. One of the best but hardest levels in New Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Wii is World 9-7, which is a stage that's covered in slippery ice blocks for you to platform on. To make things even more strenuous, there are dozens of pipes containing fire-breathing piranha plants that can melt the ice you're standing on, revealing munchers that of course deal damage if you touch them. Along your way, you'll also encounter the spiky Goomba enemy that can't be stomped on, but are placed in very inconvenient spots, so without a fire flower, you need to go very slow. The ending can also be very difficult, as if you don't move quickly, then most of the ice can melt away, and you won't have anything to platform on towards the finish line. World 9-4 is another level most people put on the top of their most difficult list, as it's a very chaotic force scroller where making mistakes can lead to your death. Finding all the star coins can also be very tough, and I definitely needed to use a guide for this one. I guess I'd have to say the easiest stage in this entry is the first in World 1-1, as it gives you the propeller power-up, so you really have to go out of your way to lose a life. I guess 1-1 could default as the easiest for a large portion of these games, this one included obviously. One of the hardest levels you'll see here in this video is Super Mario Galaxy 2 Grandmaster Galaxy's Perfect Run, as you have to beat this already grueling stage, but in this version, without taking a single point of damage. That means you need to make it past the spike balls riding Yoshi, dodge the laser shooting sentry beams, use Cloud Mario to navigate through the electrified maze, platform across the red-blue panels while avoiding the ring beamers, navigating through another electrified maze, this time using pole stars, and then finally fight off a horde of Hammer and Boomerang Bros to make your way to Rosalina. This is really one of the hardest Mario levels of all time, and to even play it, you need to gain all of the game's 242 stars, which is honestly just a feat in itself. I guess if I had to pick an easiest level from this game, then I'd have to go with the Throwback Galaxy, as it's literally Whomp's Fortress from Super Mario 64. Not only is it a course that I've played hundreds of times, but it seems way more bare bones and much more fluid to maneuver around, stripping away any difficulty it once had. Next up is Super Mario 3D Land for the 3DS, where its final level, Special 8 Crown, is the hardest by far in the game. Operating similar to Super Mario Galaxy 2 Grandmaster Galaxy, here all of the toughest situations found throughout the entry are compiled in one single stage, with no checkpoints and very few power-ups. Without a Super Leaf, you are guaranteed to have a rough time, as there are so many places where jumping and avoiding enemies is key. The only other tough level from this game I want to mention is Special 8-5, as it's set in mid-air, having you to run away from the Cosmic Clone across a series of rotating cylinders. This is a lot crazier than it seems, as the platforms you need to jump on move insanely fast to the point where finding your balance is no easy task. I think that this is the level of the game where I died the most during my playthroughs, but if there's something I missed or some place that I missed, then please let me know in the comments. In my opinion, the easiest level of Super Mario 3D Land is World 2-3, as it gives you a propeller box, so platforming is a breeze. I do appreciate the aesthetics of this stage, as it pays homage to the classic 8-bit style of Mario, but I could have done without the hand-holding, as it just made things boring. The third game in the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series is called New Super Mario Bros. 2? Okay. That came out for the 3DS in 2012, where by far the hardest levels are the ones that come with the Impossible Pack DLC. One of my biggest complaints about this entry is that it was way too easy, never really giving me any type of challenge during the game's regular playthrough. I'm at least glad Nintendo listened to what the fans wanted and didn't like from this particular entry, and created something that even the most seasoned players would find painstakingly difficult. On the easy side, I definitely have to include the game's rainbow levels, as they're really just places to gain hundreds of coins with literally no repercussions. Each world has its own of these secret areas, which are opened by finishing a level when the last 2 digits on your timer match the current world that you're in. Putting these in the game but making them common is a huge letdown, as there's no risk or really satisfying reward for finding and playing them. New Super Mario Bros. For the Wii U has a few levels I want to mention as hard, starting with one I've talked about many times before, Don't Touch Anything. In this coin collection challenge, you have to complete the level while not touching a single enemy, or by not collecting 6 or more coins. This is really rough, as of course the coins are laid out in such a way where you have to be extremely skillful to avoid them, and you really do have to exercise your patience. Another level many people said they had difficulty with is Superstar Road 8, also known as Pendulum Castle. Here you need to travel across a series of donut blocks while avoiding the swinging spike balls, only giving you a small space to traverse through. If you have ADHD like me, then this will test your tolerance of having to backtrack to avoid taking damage, but more skilled players shouldn't really have a problem. The only other level I briefly want to mention is Superstar Road 3, Swim for Your Life, where you have to do just that while a Cheap Chomp chases you down. I really just hate underwater levels where you have to avoid hordes of bad guys, and once again, without power-ups, it's really just a pain. On the easy side, I guess I'll just talk about the game's Nabbit levels, as I never really felt like it was a huge challenge to capture this strange character, and sorta seems rather unnecessary. I know that at least they attempted to try something new, but it just feels like a flat task in the grand scheme of things. In Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U, I think I can safely put Champions Road on the top of the hardest levels list, as it brings together all of the toughest elements from throughout this entry. Even with a power-up, this is still a tall task to complete, as it's not a short experience at all, and there are plenty of sections that will cause you to lose a life. Most notable are the scrolling water spike section, the beat block section that alternate much faster than before, and the dash panel section, where you need to dodge the shockwaves given out by the ring burners. This is such a fun experience that perfectly incorporates all aspects of each world you've played, and to be honest is exactly what a diehard fan wants. One other level I feel like I need to talk about is called Broken Blue Bully Belt, which is a stage full of lava hazards, tons of enemies, and rotating spike bars to add to the chaos. Being confident with your platforming is a huge must here, as if you make the wrong move and fall in the lava, then you'll instantly lose a life. I think it's pretty obvious that the easiest level in the entire game is Backstreet Bustle, as it's such a small stage that's really only meant to teach you about the double cherry power-up. Honestly, you have to be a noob or just bad to fail at this level, and sometimes I wish Nintendo realized that their fanbase is aging and there's really no need for such a low skill ceiling. The hardest level in Super Mario Odyssey is obviously its ultimate in A Long Journey's End, which can be played once you gain access to the darker side of the moon. This stage really does deviate away from the usual gameplay that we see in this title, as it's a linear experience rather than a large open world kingdom. What I do love is that you have to use the capture mechanic and use the various different abilities from those enemies to traverse through the level. Once again, this one has no checkpoints, so there's almost no way you can complete this on your first try, and it took me several attempts before I finally made it to the Empire State Building. Honestly, I could play a full game with levels just like this one, but I feel like Nintendo would never do that, as it would alienate a large portion of their audience, you know, mainly young kids. Obviously, the Cloud Kingdom is making the easy level side of things, as it really just is devoid of anything at all. I mean, look at it, it's so bare bones. I thought the Cloud Kingdom would be more cloudy, you know, and not just a stone circular platform thing, but whatever. The final game we're going to look at in this video is the Bowser's Fury game mode, which was released alongside the re-release of Super Mario 3D World for the Switch, where I'd have to say that its hardest area is Mount Magmeow. Scaling to the top of this enormous mountain is not such a simple thing, as there really are a few tough platforming sections, especially when you have to traverse on the switchboards. This game in general isn't the most difficult, but I definitely struggled a lot during the specific area, especially trying to gain all 5 of the cat shines. If I had to pick an easiest area from this game, then I'd go with the Clear Path Tower, only because it is a bit underwhelming, as navigating through it is a breeze. I do get that this isn't a full game, and more of a showcase, but I think they could have gone further with a specific concept. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. If you want to support the channel, then please leave a like, and of course subscribe, hitting that bell button to stay notified when I upload new videos. Also, I do have an Instagram at Copycat Gamer, so go give that a follow. There I upload some cool clips and items from my collection that you won't see anywhere else. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!